So this is actually part 2 of our Lord of the Rings analysis here. If you haven't seen the first one, click below to go find the first video and watch it. It's great. We're gonna finish talking about it today.
Dude, the way the chunks get blasted off to the left side.
Why does this look photoreal?
This was a one-take wonder. What was that?
Guys, welcome back to VFX Artists React. Today is a very, very special episode. It is near and dear to my heart. It is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We're gonna be breaking down all the cool, groundbreaking effects.
I have one tattoo, and it is a Lord of the Rings tattoo.
What does it say?
Are you serious?
It's a quote. It says, "All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us."
So, Gandalf, you tried to lead them over Garadras.
One of the biggest things that sets Lord of the Rings apart is the fact that they filmed most of the crazy big spectacular stuff for real using miniatures, but not just regular miniatures, massive miniatures.
Big minis.
Let's take a look at one of the most incredible miniature shots in the entire series here. Looks so good.
Man.
It's so alive and like vibrant and detailed.
Dude, oh my God, this reminds me of the dwarf sequence from The Hobbit. This is just like way better. We'll talk about that in next week's video about The Hobbit. Subscribe to see that when it comes out.
Dude, they spent so much time modeling this whole thing.
Physically modeling it.
Physically modeling it.
The whole model of Isengard is 60 feet wide. It's built in their like parking lot of Weta Workshop. The really cool thing is to film this, because it's a miniature, they couldn't just throw a big 35mm film camera through the whole thing. It's actually a periscope.
Oh, no way, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the camera's up high, and it's a periscope that's like swinging through the set.
Essentially, this is one continuous shot on 5 separate pieces.
So basically what they did is they stitched together those 5 takes.
Yeah.
They motion tracked the whole move and then added those birds in post.
Yes, and those
After-
are probably CG birds.
So are these people blue screen elements or computer generated people?
Both. At this stage in time, it's still easier to film somebody on a blue screen and just drop them in the shot than it is just like model it and have it be animated, though they still did that for a lot of this movie. That guy in the bottom there, you can tell his lighting's a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's why you would use CG characters these days, is because it's a lot easier to match the lighting and have all the perspectives match as the camera flies through.
What was that?
The motion blur disappears for a frame. What happened?
Look, the mobile stops on those guys too.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's a straight up VFX error.
I refuse to believe that there's a VFX error in Lord of the Rings! This might have been one of those things that is like, better to actually get the hero shot finished rather than tweaking this that already works 99% of the way.
They had a whole list of could be betters.
Yes!
You know, if we don't get to it, it'll work, but it could be better.
So I think probably the coolest miniature they built for the entire trilogy is Helm's Deep, because they built it physically a few different times at a few different scales. Anytime you're seeing like a close-up of people, that's a full-size set. Anytime you're seeing a super wide shot of the entire Helm's Deep, that's actually the smallest miniature they made. Anytime you're seeing like big sweeping shots going right up next to the castle itself, that's probably their quarter-scale bigature set. And then boom! That was such like a mind-blowing moment in the movie. Look at that!
So it was a miniature explosion.
To blow out those chunks of debris for real, but they could only do it once. This was a one-take wonder. The shot right after the initial explosion where we see the people like rotating, flying outwards, those are all computer-generated people.
Same with that wide shot from the battlefield here.
Is that Peter Jackson?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh, that's totally Peter Jackson! Well, Peter Jackson has a cameo in every movie he's done.
That's amazing, dude.
So the stuntman just did that?
Yes, he actually did that for real, but he was also hooked up to a cable on his back. So he would get down to the bottom and then he would actually just swing out.
That's awesome.
And they just painted out the cable. So I think the second biggest contribution to the world of visual effects that Lord of the Rings made was crowd simulation software. And they developed a piece of software called Massive.
Massive is super cool in that it let us see giant armies for the first time. And I see it as basically being a very fancy video game engine. So like if you ever played like one of the Total War games, when you see the crowds fighting, that's basically doing the exact same thing that Massive is doing. Except Massive is built as a tool where you can change the behaviors and the hood's been taken off and you can tweak all the parameters. But it's the same idea of having these different basically NPCs triggering different animations and characteristics based upon their situation. The shot where they're all running up and the first line of arrows are fired, the crowd simulation, they're all in the run animation and they're all moving. And then they select a swath in the front and they just give those kill animations. And so those all just go into a mocap fall and the rest of them just stay in the run animation.
It's all based off of motion capture data. They just rolled hundreds of takes of different motion capture data of dudes fighting, running. It's cycling through these different mocap performances that they've captured for all these guys.
They created a whole character generator, kind of like what you'd see at the beginning of an RPG, like where you select your character and you can like morph, make the ears this big, make the forehead this big. And they basically just threw on a random seed for every character Massive was referencing. So every individual orc of the entire army was actually unique.
Let's move on to the Mines of Moria. There's actually a lot of cool stuff going on here. The Balrog also lies deep within.
And if we dig too deep into these breakdowns, the Balrog might show up.
May go unnoticed.
I mean, look at that shot there. That's definitely a miniature with the people placed in. And you can kind of tell because the people don't quite fit.
Yeah,
but we only really can tell that because of our
sharpened eyes.
Same thing with this shot. It's like another super highly detailed miniature shot with the people added in.
And now the ring has drawn him near.
So this is the old version of Gollum right here. Notice how his eyes are a different color as well. They're gray here, they're blue in Two Towers and Beyond.
I love that
That, like,
optical effect on the eyes.
That retro-reflective type look of
Yeah.
like a cat off in the dark where you're shining a light at him.
Do you want to know why they have that? For a cat's eyes who are light sensitive, the back of the eyeball is basically mirrored, so it bounces light back into the rods and cones. So you get double exposure, both from the front and one more from the back.
They have a cave troll.
The first like big thing from this whole sequence is the cave troll moment. Peter Jackson also had this whole backstory for the troll saying that he's just like this kid and his mom is waiting somewhere else in the mines. I wonder when little boy is gonna come home.
Yeah.
It's like, no, little boy's never coming home.
He's dead.
The troll was actually the first bit of visual effects they did for the entire trilogy. They started by basically making a clay model of the troll and then digitizing him in with a laser scanner.
There's a program called ZBrush where you can basically sculpt with clay in the computer, but that kind of stuff didn't really exist back then. Rather than sitting there and trying to like somehow do it with polygons little by little on a computer, you could just sculpt it out of clay and scan it in.
Did we talk about this scene enough to unleash the Balrog?
You dug too deep.
Oh!
Damn, look at that. That looks so good. By this point, everybody's seen 1,000 CG characters in their lifetime. But something that is worth pointing out with the Balrog is the fire and the smoke. These days, fire and smoke, you do an actual fluid simulation, gaseous fluid simulation, to simulate actual fire and actual smoke. But the thing is, back then, they couldn't do that. So what they did with the Balrog to still make all that fire and smoke look real is they used a particle system. So basically imagine little images moving out attached to points, and on those images they would put fire and smoke elements they filmed themselves. The fact that you had real elements as images for those sprites makes the fire look real and makes the smoke look real, and the whole thing just comes together really well.
So what's crazy about the shot is that all those people you're seeing are not real. They're not even blue screened. This is like the first big time they actually succeeded in having really good digi-doubles.
Yeah, those
And
are 100% CG people there.
They look completely photoreal.
They
to me.
do look completely
The
photoreal.
motion is photoreal.
Considering the lighting technology at the time is not that great and the light simulation is not that great at the time, why does this look photoreal?
Honestly, the biggest thing is the cloth on the Hobbit's capes.
Yep. So the cloth simulation here is a real physics simulation, and when you do physics simulations, and they're good, they tend to look very realistic, at least in their motion. And also, if it's a pretty strong directional light, there's a lot of shadow that really gives definition to these characters, so you don't have to really rely on having very advanced light simulation. You can just have one good directional light and render that well. And then coupled with the fact that the motion is both motion captured, so that's completely realistic, and then the cloth simulation hides the rest of it, and then it's all on a photoreal background.
I want to get your guys' opinions on this last shot that I want to talk about.
Oh wait, I remember this! Look at it sliding across the rocks!
Oh,
So that's a miniature shot. They filmed this for real.
Oh, no.
And I guess that was a blue screen element of Sam climbing up and then running. And that's an example of why you use digital doubles for a shot like this, is because the parallax doesn't match up and it makes
Yeah.
it look like his feet are sliding across the ground.
All right, guys, I know we've talked about a lot. I just want to wrap this up with Niko and Wren's probably favorite explosion in cinema history.
Whoa. Look at that smoke, that CG smoke. They're finally getting their fluid simulations in there.
Look at this.
That's a fluid simulation.
Yeah. The sound design.
I love
blast
that.
wave.
God, it looks good.
Look at the dirt, dude. The way the chunks get blasted off to the left side.
I've watched that explosion so many times.
So good.
They didn't have a 3D model of this tower. They just had the actual 25-foot practical model, and they wanted to really control the way it was destroyed. They were like, well, what do we do? I don't know. I'll see you guys. It's Christmas break. This one dude, he was like, nope, I don't need a Christmas break.
Cancel!
So he single-handedly modeled this massive tower, came back, here's a little present for y'all. And it was this perfect model to be destroyed in the most perfect way.
Would you give up your Christmas break to do this shot?
For Lord of the Rings, heck yeah!
Throughout all of Lord of the Rings, there's all of these really smart decisions where they are maxing out their techniques and their technology, but not pushing it so far where it breaks.
It's kind of the way the whole movie was, because there wasn't anything that anybody wasn't willing to try. We never just walked away from something because it was a little more difficult, and that's, you know, Pete and Barry and the whole group. I mean, it just starts from the top down.
One of our most highly requested videos was the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We hope you guys loved it. Please leave a comment down below of a movie or a scene or a show that has some cool VFX that you guys loved and are curious about how they're made. We'll talk about it.
Next up, we are going to compare Lord of the Rings to The Hobbit and do a breakdown of all the different technology and whether it was successful or not as successful between the two movies. It's going to be awesome, so consider subscribing so you do not miss that episode.